Hello, everyone. It is a big pleasure to be in this lovely and very interesting Congress. Today, I'm going to present this talk that calls Perching Behavior by Dung Beetles, a spatial segregation mechanism to dilute interspecific competition in highly rich assemblages. In general terms, dung beetles belong to the family Scarabaeidae, is a cosmopolitan group with about nearly 8,620 species in 544 genera. It belongs to two principal subfamilies that are Aphorini and Scarabaeidae. Dung is the main resource for this group. The size of the beetles vary from 4 to 70 millimeters. And one of the main aspects is that the whole life cycle is associated with dung. From the adult to the larvae and the egg is associated to the dung. There is a high competition between the individuals, and there are different strategies to dilute this competition. So there are beetles that are active during the day, some are active during the night. There is a seasonal activity related most of the time with the rain season. There are also some kind of guilds that interact with the resource in a different way. And there are also another different kinds of mechanisms related with food search. In general terms, there are three main groups, three main functional guilds in this subfamily, in this Scarabaeidae. There are the rollers, the tunnelers, and the dwellers. Each of this group have different morphological aspects, and they have different types of nests. In general terms, the sit and wait strategy is a very common behavior around the whole animal kingdom. This strategy definitely reduces the cost of moving by using purchase in many times. And in dung beetles is a very common behavior. They use plant leaves to perch in order to search for the food resource. So first, I'm going to present you. This is one of our last paper published the last year in ecological entomology. Is a nice work related to spatial partitioning of perching on plants by tropical dung beetles. So I'm gonna talk about this first work initially. So we have like a main aspect that we want to address in this research is we want to try to investigate the relationship between dung beetles body size, the perch height, and some plant traits. We have three main questions. One is, do large beetles perch on higher plants and on larger leaves? Do functional groups, especially paracarpids and telecarpids, and the tribes select or prefer different perching heights? And the third question is there a perching relationship among dung beetles and morphological characteristics of plant leaves? For this paper, for this work, the methodology will work at the Center of Ecological Research of La Macarena in Colombia, is as a biological station in the middle of the Amazon forest, is basically primary tropical rainforest, is one of the richest localities in Colombia in terms of dung beetles. We have a report for this place 70 species of dung beetles. So it's one of the most diverse in this group. So for this study, we use linear transects during 5 days. In each of these transects, we look for dung beetles perching. Every time that we find a dung beetle, we collect the dung beetle so we can identify the species, and we measure the body length of the beetle. We also collect the plant, so we have an idea of the genus and the species of the plant. We measure the height of the leaf and the area of the leaf. Then we make some linear regression models between the leaf height, the leaf area, and the body size. We do some ANOVA to get the F values. We do some post hoc tests using Tukey's test. We evaluate the proportion of variance estimated for each model. We examined the interaction between the beetles and the plants to a bipartite network analysis, and everything was done in our software. For the results, we get 21 species with Perching records in all the dung beetles relocation guilds, related with 32 species of plants in 15 families. These are the values of perching. So we have here the different tribes and the different species, and the range of perching of each one. So we found significant differences in perching height between functional groups, tribes, and species. There are differences. The telecoprids, the rollers, perch on higher leaves than paracoprids. We found out that the tribe, the Deltocalini tribe, perch in higher leaves, and this species, Sylvicanthon achinoptialis, perch on the higher leaves around 180 centimeters. So we have here the different functional groups. It's clearly that telecoprids perch on higher leaves and is related with the beetle species length. The other result of this study is that beetle size is related with perching leaf height. So when beetles are bigger, they prefer perching leaf heights that are higher. So larger beetles perch on higher leaves, and larger beetles select larger leaf areas also. We found a strong network between beetles and plants that we can show here. We found 4 main clusters and a modularity of 0.33. So some species interact with many plants, but other ones are very specific. So there is a very complex network between beetles and plants. So for the second part, we make this other paper that we make a review about the topic, a review about perching behavior in dung beetles, in order to understand which are the main variables and especially the main hypotheses that try to respond and try to understand this type of behavior. So we collect a total of 16 studies of perching behavior for 166 species in all tropical areas. However, most of the studies are related to neotropical countries. And we found a perching range from 3 centimeters to 250 centimeters. There is a big range of perching in this area. In terms of the hypotheses that we found these 6 different hypotheses that try to explain the perching behavior in dung beetles. So the first one is a resource partitioning. Is a hypothesis that try to explain that the resource, the spatial partitioning is the main aspect is competition between species. We found a second hypothesis that it's food detection. So some authors say that this behavior of perching helps the beetles to better detect the food resources. There is a foraging time hypothesis that says that this behavior increases the foraging time without energy expenditure. There are other hypotheses like predators avoidance, that this behavior is related to avoid some predators, that this behavior is related with thermoregulation for some species, and some authors that say that this behavior is just resting in those leaves. In terms of this review, we found that all functional groups, we found that all of them found perching. So the perching behavior is not related with a functional group. We found tunneler's, rollers, and dwellers perching. We found also diurnal and nocturnal perching species. So the behavior of perching is not related with thermoregulation. Uh, and we also provide one of the first examples of social perching of different individuals of the same species perching in very close leaves. In terms of the results of the analysis of the whole papers, we found that most of them are related to tropical forest. All the beetles are strictly coprophagous, so we don't find any beetle that is necrophagous or that use another different resource than dung. We found that there is no relation with diel activity because we found also nocturnal activity of perching. There is no relation with thermoregulation in terms of the leaves. There most of the time there are not with direct sun in most of the leaves. So we propose that resource partitioning, food detection, and foraging time are the most possible hypotheses related with this behavior. In terms of the discussion, perching behavior is an efficient and common strategy for dung beetles in tropical rainforest. There is a spatial partitioning between perching dung beetles, which in most of the cases depend on the characteristics of plants, on plants traits, and in beetle traits, shaping the community network structure. We also propose that perching behavior probably reduce the competition between species that are arriving to the same food resource. So it's a very important mechanism to avoid this competition. And finally, one aspect to analyze and in detail in future investigations, especially with experimental analysis, is the relationship between perching behavior and functional traits. We think there is a close relationship between these two aspects. Uh, Finally, I want to acknowledge these institutions and my other co-authors for helping me during the production and the analysis of these two papers. And thanks to all of you to be here and listen to this talk. This is my email, my Instagram, and Twitter if you want to just contact me and send me any question, any doubt, some aspect that you want to that is not clear, or if you want to have the papers, just send me an email and I will send you the papers more than happy. Thank you again to the Congress and to all the organizers. It was a big pleasure to be part of this, and take care.